Hey folks, Joe here. I know you're used to seeing me in the Reverb studio, but I do have a place of my own as well. This is where I make music, I record stuff here, I score films. So in this video, I'm gonna take a piece of free stock footage that one of our editors compiled, and I'm gonna show you 4 different genres of scoring, 4 different techniques to try to capture 4 different emotions of the same picture. So for the first example, let's assume that this film needs some kind of drama. Let's just see it and then we'll talk about it. Minor chord on our main character, suggesting maybe he's been through something, maybe he's lost a family member, something like that, some sadness. Strings come in. It's a little Bravehearty, hopefully not too much. There's maybe some drama there. A technique to try to capture this type of thing is staying in a key is very important. So in this case, we're in the key of C, and we're dealing with C major, A minor, and F and G. There's also always a way, even in a major key, to create little hints of sadness or little hints of, some kind of dramatic quality. It's fairly easy to create a good amount of drama by just supporting a piano with strings. So I set up a few string patches. Grab your cellos, your violas, a couple violins. I use Best Service strings, and the plugin is called Chris Hine, the Chris Hine cello, Chris Hine violin. This stuff is amazing. You can get any articulation you can think of. You can really have so much control over what the instrument is doing. You can even modify the amount of players very quickly from a solo instrument up to 4 instruments right away. So for example, this is only a cello. So you can get the sense that there are a few players playing, and depending on how you dial in your reverbs and stuff, you can make things pretty big. A good technique with dialing in strings is also to set up 2 of the same patch. So I'll set up a cello and I'll set up a little double of that. And then I'll perform whatever the cello's voice is, I'll perform it twice. It's important to perform it twice rather than copy and pasting, because it's not just doubling, it gives you the sense of 2 different players, as if they're going to interpret a piece together, but they're playing side by side. So doubling and performing your doubles is important with strings. Let's assume that this film needs some kind of synthetic quality or industrial type of or maybe otherworldly quality to it. You'll get that information from the director's always right, okay? This style of scoring gives the composer a lot of freedom to be experimental and to almost insert themselves in the picture and be very suggestive of things. So for example, in this quick little score that I put together here, I used the clock that we see a few times in the first 30 seconds. I'm assuming that maybe that holds some kind of importance, and I'm really pointing to it and almost personifying the clock as a character. For a different genre, this would be completely out of line and against all the rules, but for this type of scoring, this might be exactly what the director is looking for. So let's have a look. Okay, so for this score, obviously I'm using all synthetic instruments, and actually for this piece I've used all Logic built-in synths. Logic actually has some really great options. Some of them you can really dive in and shape parameters just the way you want, and some of them just already kind of have these cinematic patches, and that's what I did for the clock. The voice of the clock is just a cinematic Logic patch. Kind of going back and forth between that and our character, who has this kind of like more straight growing wave synth type of thing. And when we see the lake, I'm bringing in more elements. And then on the title, bring in the melody. Okay? Melody on the title, a fairly important thing. The best way to hook somebody in is with a melody. There's a few different routes we can take with approaching a melody in a film. So one approach is playing big intervals, okay? Large intervals, and when you play large intervals, you create a sense of openness and almost power. So we have a fifth, and then we have a minor sixth. Okay, and over our title, I combined two instruments for this melody. One is just this slow synth brass swell that I tweaked the parameters here a little bit and synced it up with the tempo from my tempo map. I've combined that with then a brass, like a French horn, and this is just from the Contact library. So sometimes what I like to do for a melody, for a big melody, is get a French horn sound. French horn is in a lot of film scores. It's a very cinematic instrument. A French horn is your friend. And combine that with a synth, like a synth brass, and sometimes I like to hard pan them stereo, so we kind of get this wide sound out of it. And so let's hear just those two instruments. I'm just playing the same melody on the French horn patch and on the synth patch. So for that kind of industrial suspense type of score, those are a couple tips. Large intervals for a melody and creating some kind of chaotic rhythmic thing that personifies a character in the picture. We've done industrial, we've done drama. We're gonna do horror. Oh, the horror! Horror is probably my favorite genre to score to, and there are many genres within horror. It was tough for me to decide which route to go here, but I ended up going with a sad horror as opposed to a super scary or a slasher or a horror thriller. This is more like kind of a slow, like depressing, sad horror. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, so for this style of horror, there's a couple different techniques we can talk about. First of all, interesting to think about your scale not as any diatonic scale to any certain key. We want to leave a tonal center. We don't want to be limited by something that feels like we know where it's going. One way to do this is to always think chromatically. So rather than even thinking in a minor scale, which is already very sad, a chromatic scale offers not only sadness, but also dissonance. And if we can utilize very close intervals, very small intervals, then they're going to be fighting each other. So instead of thinking about chords, we might be thinking about clusters, okay? And when you're setting up a chord in a chromatic scale, you're identifying them by numbers, okay? So we have 12 tones, and so we are going to, let's say we're starting on C, this is going to be 1, and a C sharp is going to be a 2, and a D is going to be a 3rd, and a D sharp is going to be a 4th, okay? So we're eliminating our diatonic center here, and we're thinking chromatically. So a chord that I like to use out of the chromatic scale, or rather a cluster I like to use, is 1, 2, 4, 5, okay? 1, 2, 4, 5. When you play those together, and these can be nice little just droplets that offer plenty of concern and discomfort. Now, that technique also maybe even works better in like a slasher flick where you have to like get a jarring tonality happening. For this, I did use that in the violins at the end, but for the most part, what's carrying the piece here is a sad movement of minor triads, okay? And to create minor triads to sound even sadder than a minor triad, one is move triads in unlikely intervals, okay? So if you're starting, I think I started here on a G minor, and then I moved to an E flat minor, okay? Minor triads that are not related to each other give us a sense of almost hopelessness, okay? And no matter which direction we're moving harmonically, it still sounds like we're falling, or feels like we're falling. So if we move minor triads in unlikely intervals, and then another technique to employ is flatting the fifth. A very simple thing. And if you use both those techniques together, which I did here as well, then all we're doing is we're taking a minor triad, we're flatting the fifth, we're playing with a fifth and a flat 5 motif, and then we're doing it the same way on a different chord. So we don't want them to feel resolved in a certain way. We want them to continue to feel this length of non-resolve. So for this whole score, I used those techniques, moving minor triads, unlikely intervals, playing with the flat 5, and then at the end, when our title is about to emerge, I gave a little creepy scale where I combined a low piano with a low cello to create just a little more excitement around the title. Started on D flat, it's like a D flat minor scale with a flat 5, 1, minor 3rd, flat 5, 5, major 7, root, 2nd, minor 3rd, and then landing on a C minor. Okay, so we're going, again, unlikely, from D flat minor to C minor. An unlikely move, and we're just setting that up with a scale. Okay, so now that we know what techniques were used here, let's try to listen in and try to really pinpoint where those triads are moving and where those flat 5s are coming in, and then the scale at the end on the title. Okay, for the next genre that we are going to approach, this is kind of like maybe the opposite of the industrial or the horror thing, in the way that in those genres, the composer maybe asserts themselves in, and it is very suggestive about what's happening. Whereas something like this is a little more just kind of background and just kind of supporting the picture. So the driving instrument in this score is an electric guitar going through a carbon copy and a Walrus Audio Fathom plate reverb. Electric guitar can be an effective instrument in a film with a little bit of delay and some reverb. It can be kind of like definitely a pace-setting quality, a pace-setting instrument. So I'll play for you the part here. Then I bring in a piano, that same company, Best Service, they have a piano. It's called the Galaxy German Baby Grand. Great piano sounds and so many controls here. You can have hammer noises, pedal noises, damper noises. Of course you can transpose and you can do all that. But one thing that's cool that is effective in a cinematic way is adding a pad to it. So without the pad, and then with the pad, and I'll exaggerate it a little bit too. So this is a really great tool to use in film scoring because you can have a nice natural sounding piano strike and then have attached to it a nice atmosphere, a pad. You don't have to patch in another synth or another atmospheric quality or anything, and you can have it attached to your piano. So I've combined that piano with a pad, with also a cello and a pizzicato bass, contrabass. Again, this is the kind of stuff that goes into the viewer's subconscious, but it is really effective to bring somebody into a scene. So let's hear just those together. Piano with a pad, cello, and contrabass. Okay, cool. Now, I bring in a piano melody to kind of set up the title. Supporting a piano melody with some strings, very effective. A go-to scale for cinematic music is a Lydian scale. Basically a major scale with a sharp 4. Sharp 4 is your color tone there. So if we're in the key of C, that scale can be used in a lot of different cinematic ways. It can be very cartoonish. But then it can also bring a sense of kind of contemplation. Okay, and that's how I think that I'm using this scale here. It strays from a major sounding thing or a minor sounding thing, and it puts us in this realm of discovery or contemplation of some kind. So Lydian scales are very cinematic and a good go-to scale. Oh, mallets. So here is an example of a scene changing before the music wants to change. Our friend is the cymbal, a cymbal wash with a mallet. It works every time. So if a scene changes, but we need something to bring us to the chord change, grab a mallet and use a cymbal, and it's really easy. So yeah, I guess for this kind of genre, trying to remain non-assuming on the character and just trying to provide support and a pace. Pace is very important. Using a Lydian scale, that major scale with a sharp 4 for a melody or for chords. Yeah, try those out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this video was insightful on some film scoring techniques on how to approach the same film in 4 different ways. Definitely check out the blog. We're going to be posting some articles featuring more film composers and media composers of different kinds. And if you enjoyed this, let us know in the comments and we can go more in depth on different genres or different styles. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you guys next time.